We often hear that the Taliban practiced Islamic law. Could you talk about what that actually means?
Sharia law is pretty mysterious. It's in the eye of the beholder, I finally concluded. Technically, if you ask for a textbook explanation of Sharia law, it emerged after the death of the Prophet. This was an effort to encapsulate the teachings of Islam and then apply them to ongoing centuries. And the three parts of the Sharia law is the Quran, which is God's word as revealed to the Prophet, and therefore it cannot be changed. Then there's the Sunnah, which are the things that the Prophet was seen to do. For example, the Prophet had a beard, therefore there's nothing wrong with having a beard. And the Prophet ate in a certain way, therefore we should eat in a certain way. It's not on the same level of priority as the Quran, but if the Prophet did it, it's okay. And then there's these things called Hadiths. And these are people's statements about what the Prophet said, not when God was speaking through him, but when the Prophet was simply speaking. And there literally are thousands of these. His wife came up with several hundred, and there were people who were with him in Medina and Mecca, and they came up with them. There were so many that several centuries after the death of the Prophet, there were efforts by Muslim scholars to say, well, these probably are things that he said. These may have been things that he said. These are probably things he didn't say. So the Hadith are sort of way off in a somewhat uncertain area. Now, when you come to what Sharia law will be observed, let's say, in Kandahar, in Afghanistan, then it makes a difference who is the scholar who's chosen to enunciate this. And in the case of the Taliban, they selected Mullah Omar. And his particular interpretation is his combination of the Quran and the Sunnah and the Hadith. And so his interpretation is that girls should not go to school, the women should not be outside their homes without male companions, the men should grow beards, that there should be no kite flying, there should be no music. And it's not in the Quran. I mean, none of those are in the Quran. But there's some combination of the Sunnah and the Hadith, and then Mullah Omar saying it. You go to Paris, and there's a mosque in Paris, and their interpretation of Sharia is very different. You go to Iran, and their interpretation is very different. So it shifts from place to place. Today in Afghanistan, Mullah Omar is still sort of the spokesperson for the Taliban, and that makes it a little bit complicated. But when you cross over into Pakistan, into the federally administered tribal area, Fatah, there Sharia varies almost from valley to valley. It's whatever that particular mullah said to that particular tribal chieftain. So when you have somebody from the federally administered tribal area speaking of Sharia law, and then being critical of the Taliban, is because their version of the Sharia law is what their tribal group said and what Mullah Omar is saying. And then they criticize the Pakistan government because the Pakistan government in the constitution says that they will observe Sharia law, and it's a very different kind of thing. So even within Fatah, the Taliban, Al-Qaeda, and the government of Pakistan, you have four different interpretations of what the Sharia law is. And this makes it very difficult in terms of, where behind which group do you want to put your military might, or do you want to let them sort of get together and sort it out among themselves? And that's part of the dilemma I think the U.S. is in right now, because what the U.S. would like to see would be kind of human rights. And women can go to school, women could wear what they wanted, and no woman should be forced to marry against her will, women should be able to have jobs that they want to. And that doesn't quite fit in with any of the Sharia laws, except for those who would say, well, our version of Sharia law is the sort of Sharia law that holds in Paris or holds in London, which does say women should certainly do this because that's sort of the nature of human rights.